Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel and this video entry. My name is Paul Brett and the subject of this video is set up and execute the ITX 10 REST API samples. Throughout this video I will mostly refer to the product as ITX. However, these techniques apply to all current versions that include a REST API. Let's move on to the agenda. Today I will be demonstrating installation of ITX 10, installation of Tomcat 7, deploying a WAR file. This is encapsulated the REST API, execution of your first REST API map, and finally a quick summary. I'll be doing most of the installation on a Linux machine that I have pre-prepared, disabling the firewall to make the demonstration go more smoothly. Let's move on to step 1. Okay, here we have our Linux box and I'm at the login prompt. I'm going to log in with the username called Mikata. Now as you can see, Mikata has a home directory, and in that home directory I have the downloaded zip of ITX 10. The administrator has pre-prepared the ITX 10 directory for me to extract this tar into, which I'm going to do now. And that's pretty much it. The directory is populated, the installation is complete. Okay, I'm going to pop into the examples REST API samples maps folder here. And you'll see there is a map called oneinOneout.mmc. The first thing I've got to do is run the setup script so that the ITX programs can be found. And then I'm going to use the command server just to check that everything is installed properly and this oneinOneout map will execute correctly. I'm going to use the echo-in command to send in just 5 bytes of data. And I'm going to send the output to a local file. So the map is completed successfully, and if we check the content of the output file you can see that the word stuff is in fact there and been capitalized, as is what we expected the map to do. So let's remove the output file now, and that's the end of the ITX 10 installation. Back to our Linux box, and now we're going to install Tomcat. I'm going to log in as my Mikata user again. You will note that the zip file for ITX 10 is still there. We're just going to ignore that for the moment. And we're going to issue the appropriate wget command to grab the binary for Tomcat 7 from the internet. Download is fairly quick on my system. Okay, I'm going to extract that file into the local directory, and then afterwards I will use a sudo command to move it into a privileged area, which is where it really needs to be for execution. I'm going to move it to /usr/local/Tomcat 7. Okay, time to fire up this puppy and see if it works. So I change to the installation directory and go into the bin subdirectory and run the startup.sh script. Now we've got a failure there, and I was fully expecting this. We don't have Java installed on this machine by default, but I'm going to be using the Java that comes with ITX 10, and ITX 10 setup script does actually need to be executed before starting the web server for all the correct variables to be in place, ready for the WAR that contains the REST API to be deployed. So there we go, we've run the setup script. We're going back into the bin directory of Tomcat and running startup.sh, and there you can see the server has started correctly. On my Windows PC, I've opened my web browser and pointed it to the IP address and port number for Tomcat, which, as you can see, is running. Okay, we're going to click the server status button here. It's going to ask us to log in. A little task I did offline was create a user called admin. I'll show you how I did that in a moment, but for now let's just log in as admin and see the content of the server status page. There we go, server status page. I'm going to click on the list applications link, and as you can see all the default applications are listed there. TX-REST API is not among them. Scrolling down you can see the section where you can choose to deploy the WAR file via the browser. I'm not going to be doing that today, instead I'm going to deploy that at the Linux command line. Back at the command line, and I'm going to show you the changes I made to the tomcat-users.xml file in the conf subdirectory. You'll note the bottom 4 lines there. I've created an admin user with the admin-GUI and manager-GUI roles. This was so that we could log in and just have a look at the deployment pages. It's not important for the rest of this demonstration. Okay, I'm in the web apps subdirectory now, and I'm going to copy into here the WAR file from the ITX installation. I'm going to list the directory, and you can see that it has come in tx-rest.war. I'm going to stop and restart the Tomcat server now, and that will do an attempt to start that WAR file. It will expand it into its own directory first and then attempt to start it. It will fail because we haven't actually deployed the required properties file into the ITX installation. But we'll show you what happens when we shut down and restart the Tomcat server. Okay, so I run the startup script and I check the directory contents again, and you'll notice that the WAR file has been extracted to its own directory there. Back at the web browser, as you can see, I have refreshed and the tx-rest API is listed among the applications deployed. However, it's not started, and if I try to click the start button, nothing happens. This is as expected due to the aforementioned properties file being missing. Back on the server, and as you can see, I'm in the ITX 10 directory. Let's have a quick look at content. You can see there is no tx-rest.properties file. I'm going to use a remote computer to copy that file in. Okay, and look at the content. You can see the file is there. Let's have a look, see what it actually contains. These are the minimum options required to get the REST API working. I'm not going to go through each one as they are adequately detailed in the documentation. Back at the web browser, I've refreshed the screen, and as you can see the tx-rest WAR file is still listed as deployed, but now when I click the start button we should see some better behaviour. Right, it's refreshed. As you can see, the WAR file has deployed and has actually successfully started this time. This means that the .properties file that I deployed earlier is completely working, and in theory we should be able to call any of the items from the TX-REST API, including the maps, I'm going to click the actual test script there. By clicking on the name, it comes up with a little test message there just to let you know that everything's working. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the testing. I'm going to open a new tab and paste in the URL to the Swagger documentation for the REST API. This details all the methods that are available. I'm going to scroll down to the Direct Map Run API, and specifically I'm going to use the put to run a map synchronously. Here's all the documentation for this particular API entry. I'm going to use the Try It Out button and fill in the various fields. We're going to start with the map name, one in, one out. We don't need to put the map extension here. I'm going to add an item to override input card 1. So that's 1 semicolon BUF for the echo adapter, a semicolon, and then a small little data string just to send something in different. Scrolling down, I'm going to add an output object. I'm going to tell it that I want it to echo back to me output card 1. Need to change the request body from the standard to text/plain. Need to remove the data from the data for input card, and now I hit the execute button. Let's have a look how that went. The Swagger documentation gives you the equivalent curl command should you want to run this at the Linux command line. The completion code is good at 200, exactly what I was expecting, and the echoed data from the map is available to download as a file, which we will do now. Let's open that file in Notepad. And as you can see, we have "this is my data string," all capitalized as per the map specification. Okay, let's close this up now and we'll try something else. Let's scroll up the list of options again, and let's change output 1 from an echo to a file instead. So that's 1 semicolon file semicolon, and then I'm going to put in the name of the file, which will be relative to the map. And I'm going to ask for the execution to return the audit log to me. Everything else can remain the same. Hit the execute button. Once again, the equivalent curl command is shown for you. The status completion code 200 is good, and in the response body, as you can see, we have the audit log for the map. And the string I'm looking for, where is it? There it is map completed successfully. And that brings me to the end of the demonstration. Okay, now for a quick summary of the session. The following software was installed. We installed IBM Transformation Extender version 10, and then I did a quick demo of running a map from the command server. Then we installed Apache Tomcat 7, including some additional configuration required to add an admin user. Then we deployed the WAR file. We had some issues at first with the missing .properties file. The properties file was put in place, and then the test script completed. We explored the Swagger documentation and did a couple of executions of an example map, looking at the output. I want to thank you all for taking the time to review my video demonstration today. I trust you found it both interesting and informative. Please do feel free to subscribe to my Twitter feed and check out my YouTube channel for other ITX related videos. Thank you. Goodbye.